Hi everybody, today we're doing the pen and ink 1-point perspective demo. So I'm starting with my ruler, pen, pencil, and then in some newsprint you'll have 10-inch by 14-inch white drawing paper. There's me kind of measuring it out. This is the paper you should be using for this project. The newsprint you can use if your vanishing point isn't on your paper. But for the 1 point, I'm going to have my vanishing point on my paper, so you don't have to worry about that. So you're going to start by adding your 1-inch border. And it's just like all our other projects, just measure a few points that are 1 inch around each. I actually drew my horizon line first for this. And I'm just measuring out 1 inch all around using my ruler. You're going to be using your ruler a lot for this project. All right. And now I put my vanishing point on my border actually, just right there. And now I'm going to draw my forms. And in 1 point, remember, you draw the whole rectangle or square first, making sure those lines, vertical lines are parallel to each other, horizontal lines are parallel to each other, and both of those lines should be perpendicular to each other. So you should have square forms. And by square, I mean they have 90-degree angles on their corners. So I'm just starting. I had a couple sketches of these in my sketchbook, which I recommend you practicing, but if you want to, you can just go for it. You do have 2 pieces of paper. And I'm doing all of my lines. I'm holding my pencil pretty high up, so I'm just making really light lines, because I want to be able to erase these later. But I still need to be able to see them, so it's kind of a balancing act there. Now I'm drawing my back lines after I drew my orthogonal lines. You can erase as you go to keep yourself organized. And just with like making value with pencil control, there's such thing as eraser control. If you use a light hand with your eraser, you're less likely to wrinkle your paper, because remember, that's part of your craftsmanship. You want to keep your paper nice and clean and smooth. So I'm going to choose to kind of erase more toward the end. I think it's just quicker to be able to be drawing and not stop and erase every time. So I'm just drawing another rectangle here. And same thing, because it's 1 point, all of my orthogonals are going to recede to that 1 point. That 1 point on the horizon line. And now here I'm showing what kind of happens if your form is ending pretty close to your horizon line. Those orthogonal lines are going to be very close to each other and kind of hard to see. So I recommend keeping your forms away from the horizon line if you can. But you can also, if you need a challenge, you can kind of make sure those lines are there. It'll just be a little bit hard when you add the ink, and you'll see that when I go back to outline. And sorry my head keeps dipping into the frame. This is precision work here, so you gotta get in close to look sometimes. Because I have 2 forms that are kind of above the horizon line, and they're kind of wider rectangles, I'm gonna try a skinnier rectangle here that goes above and below the horizon line. Drawing my orthogonals. And because I'm drawing so light, it's a little bit hard to see probably on your screen, but you'll be able to see these lines when I outline them. And I'm adding another rectangle below, because remember, you need 5 forms, so this is my 4th form. And as I was drawing my orthogonal lines here, I realized that I forgot the back line of my other form, which I'll go back and add later. if you forget some of your lines, that's why it can be helpful to not erase your orthogonals immediately, because you might need to go back and use them. So there, I added that back line now. And now I need one more shape, and I'm kind of looking at the negative space, and I think I could use another small form on the top half of my composition. So we're still using our drawing knowledge and thinking about composition, negative space, balance between forms, and that can mean lots of different things depending on the size of your forms and their placement. And you want your forms to touch or interact, overlap. This should not be 5 floating forms that are not connected at all. Alright, so before I go in and add those windows or cutouts, I'm going to erase some of my lines. And now I need to have 2 cutouts. So I'm going to start here. Because this is on the front plane, I know it's going to just be a rectangle because this is just 2-point perspective. So a cutout on that front side of that form is still going to just be a rectangle. And then within that rectangle, I still am going from the corner and using my vanishing point to decide where that orthogonal line recedes to. But horizontal remains horizontal, vertical remains vertical. So I kind of made it look like a little garage there. And now I'm going to add another cutout, this time in the bottom of a form. So my horizontal lines are horizontal and parallel with my other horizontal lines, but then I am using the vanishing point to decide the angle of that cutout based on where the horizontal line ends, and vertical lines can remain vertical. So that's almost like a little chimney going up through that form. And now I'm going to add one more just to show you on the side again. So I used one vertical line, and I'm receding back to the vanishing points from there. And my horizontal lines are remaining horizontal. So that's kind of like a little doorway on that side. And it'll become clearer now that I'm going to add my outlines. So you're going to use the pen to outline, but I am still double checking as I'm outlining to make sure my points are receding to the proper vanishing point. Even though you drew it already in pencil, it's good to just double check. Some lines might change a little bit. Now you're going to choose your light direction and add value. So I drew an arrow, and I know that inner box shape is going to be pretty much in shadow, so I'm just showing some value there. And adding more value on my interior shapes. And I would go through and do this for all of my forms. And if you're having trouble deciding how a light would hit your rectangular forms, you can use your cube from the Simple Still Lifes and a light source to kind of experiment with how different planes would be affected by different light source angles.